This video is not a criticism of the performance of the participating pilots. Its sole purpose is to analyze maneuvers in order to learn from them. The majority of DCS pilots behave similarly, which is why they prefer incompetent or idle opponents or targets. Overview of the battlefield and the current situation, the resulting tactical approach, and behavior, is the top class of success and survival skills. The recording is from a regular mission night on the Ugly Angel's 6th birthday on May 2, 2022. Although many opponents appear randomly, the mission is familiar to most pilots, but the tactical situation is always different. But first, let's take a look at the situation and the task at hand. Our main base is located at Shiraz International Airport. The mission target is northeast. This is a FOB and two other positions attacked from the southeast with solid armored units. The main objective is to evacuate our troops from there. To achieve this goal, however, it is necessary to take over two enemy FOBs on the way there and use them for our own supply. We already have an active FOB south of the ridge at the lake, which shortens the way for rearming and refueling during the mission and providing ground troops. We are under time pressure. Therefore, at about the same time as the air forces, several convoys take off from the urban area of Shiraz and take the road through the valley to the east. They will capture the enemy FOBs and then supply us from there. The first convoy has the most extended way to go. The second one turns north to the nearest FOB. Our helicopters have the task of securing the road and protecting the convoy. For this purpose, Apache, Ka-50, or Gazelle, fly ahead to eliminate heavy targets and air defenses. The UH-1s or Mi-8 take care of the lighter targets, or transport troops close to the enemy to fight them. If the easternmost FOB could be secured, the secondary objective is achieved and it goes on to the northeast to rescue the ground units. According to plan, an APCHE flies ahead and reaches the city's northern outskirts alone while the main group is still at the airfield. Being alone is already the first mistake. You always should fly at least in pairs. In addition, the pilot chooses the shortest path on the right side of the valley. Thus he can see things only very late or not yet that are already very close. Let's consider the armament of the Apache. 16 missiles with an effective distance of about 8 kilometers. The Apache flies directly into the valley without looking around first. It does nothing when fired upon with light weapons from the transformer station. Either because she has not yet noticed it, the wingman who could have warned is missing, or because she does not consider ground troops a threat. At this point, the next substation can already be seen. Nevertheless, the Apache simply flies on, although the danger that there are also opponents there is severe. Presumably, the gunner is looking for targets without the pilot looking for cover. When he realizes the danger, it is already too late. At a very short distance, the approaching missile cannot be dodged. The Gazelle flies directly to the valley's northern side, while the first convoy leaves the city area and drives towards the substation. For him, the Gazelle M is no direct help because of its armament. At the same time, start other Apache to support. The first convoy thus reaches the substation without any air support and comes directly under fire. While an Apache and a Ka-50 reach the convoy, the Gazelle stands forward, looking for heavy targets. The Apache overflies the substation without using its air-to-surface missiles or worrying about other threats and is hit again from the second substation. After the first Apache survives, the second following one flies directly into the next missile. Meanwhile, the Gazelle continues to search in a safe position but has a limited range of 4 kilometers, making it highly vulnerable. The next Apache still follows the same non-tactic and takes the shortest path, directly in front of the enemy's shotgun. His George overlooks the nearby enemy and fires at a distant group behind the first hills. Now that most of the opponents here have already been eliminated, the next one is now cautious. However, tank destroyers should secure the road before the convoy, and not hide behind it. As the convoy continues into unsecured terrain, the Apache attacks the enemy infantry with its board gun. At least, he watches his cover at a safe distance. In the DCS replay of the mission, the Gazelle crashed in low-level flight at this time. In the mission itself, it was active for about 90 minutes and destroyed about 15 targets before being shot down itself. The Apaches have sunk their teeth into enemy infantry that the convoy has already passed and that poses no threat to it. This behavior is typical in DCS. Found enemies are attacked and destroyed. The actual task becomes secondary. If you like what you see, please thumbs up, and please subscribe to the channel. Your comments and opinions, please leave them in the comments below. In the meantime, a UH-1, traveling alone of course, has been lost. The gyro compass was probably not set. Another one tries to do its job but has to be careful not to be hit by an Apache still chasing foot soldiers while the convoy itself is already out of sight. After the Apache again fly in front of the convoy, columns of smoke appear in a mile on the left. Here the Gazelle was already in action and is now on the way to rearm. 4 missiles are already damn little if one is alone on itself. Targets in sight, full speed ahead. A second Apache, attracted by the smoke, continues to spot targets at some distance and attacks them from a high altitude, in the middle of the valley. What follows is inevitable. Estrella, on the right edge of the valley, gladly accepts the offer and takes out first one, and then the other Apache. The feeling of being invincible and omnipotent seems so great in the cockpit of the Apache that one does not seem to worry about repeated shootdowns. The UH-1 gunship, on the other hand, seems to be doing everything right. It takes advantage of the terrain and can get closer to the Estrella without being fired upon itself. But no, there are other targets to the left of the road, and also, the pilot of the UH-1 forgets that he is not invulnerable. Instead of giving his door gunners the opportunity from a safe distance of 1,000 to 1,500 feet, he heads directly towards it. Same place, same tactics. The next Apache is also attracted to smoke like a moth to a flame. The enemy is attacked from the best shooting position, high above the valley. But there was something else. Great luck. The Estrella is currently being re-equipped and cannot fire. Otherwise, the Apache would have been history long ago. Even when he attacks with the ship's cannon and all the time in the world, his luck holds out. Without worrying about light shelling, luck continues to hold and George finds a suitable target. With the anti-aircraft tank, he has acquired precisely the right first target, and even more, such luck that this probably stood unfavorably and could not fire. While an Apollo 11 sees the enemy coming from a side valley and fights them with missiles, the first Apache takes the enemy FOB under fire. Mind you, the one that is approached by the second convoy. Instead of using his remaining 4 Hellfire, He now goes into close combat and shoots the enemy with the ship's cannon. Not only that he attacks the more harmless targets, but it also costs a lot of time, and the convoy is almost there. The receipt comes immediately, and the non-attacked tanks take the convoy under fire. Instead of the Apache, a UH-1 gunship now attacks the tanks and infantry in a suicide mission. They are so surprised that they do not shoot back. The convoy is still almost on par with the helicopters they are supposed to protect him. But above all, they were supposed to secure the road before him. At the same time, he has almost reached the end of the valley. The Apaches are either strafing targets far off the road or circling back near the convoy. No one secures the road, and only half a mile before the convoy approaches punishment for this negligence. The bad news is that this costs the life of one Apache. The good news is that the second Apache attacks with its first missile, the target that threatens him the most. However, our convoy is destroyed, and all possible support is far away. The only one who can come to the rescue has the enemy at his back and is short-sighted. We remember that the range of his hellfire is 8 kilometers, far beyond the range of the tanks. Frustration slowly sets in, and the first complaints about the oh-so-superior enemy that you have nothing to oppose. And worst of all, these constant restarts. From the cockpit's point of view, this seems justified in the heat of the moment. But the pilot repeatedly gets himself into situations in which he is overtaxed and simply does not react or react incorrectly. How different the course of history looks if you look at him only a few meters outside the cockpit, without all the flashing lights, buttons, and impressions that are no help at this moment. What are the Hueys doing in the meantime? This one is senselessly attacking the remaining tanks while flying by and risks being shot down itself. After all, it reaches the end of the valley, and as before, attacks enemy infantry head-on and gets much too close. Most of our force has now been en route from Shiraz to the area of operations for over an hour to get shot down there. Only occasionally can a machine take advantage of the forward fobs. Not that a wrong impression is created. Everyone had fun that evening, and from the cockpit, no one was aware of how catastrophic the tactical performance was, and how easy it would be to achieve the mission objective. This Apache now takes the last 3 tanks out of the game. Of course, from the height and the middle of the valley. At first, from a safe distance. This decreases with every shot, and the danger of being shot down becomes greater and greater, entirely unnecessarily. The other Apache continues to play with infantry catch. The first convoy is already destroyed, and yet enemy contact, no matter how small and insignificant, makes you completely forget about any tasks and planning. This is the time when the mission builder pulls his hair out and wonders what all the effort and consideration is for. A computer-generated list of objectives would have done the trick. Occasionally, the advantages of the terrain are recognized and the cover is used. The fascination of the approaching angel of death makes you forget that you are not the only one on the battlefield. Just because you can't see the enemy doesn't mean he isn't there. Even though the Apache has played the leading role so far, essentially, the same is true for the Ka-50. The only difference is that Ka-50 pilots not new on the DCS battlefield. They have been suffering for a while, and their ego has already been scratched a few times. But when the enemy is in sight, they forget everything around, freezing like a mouse in the face of a snake. Both rockets miss their target, and the Ka-50 is again not an active player for the next 10 minutes. Yes, there are others on the way, quietly and secretly, doing their jobs. Nevertheless, they are not crucial for the mission's success, which is why we don't concern ourselves too much with them. In the meantime, the second convoy had also reached the end of the valley and the plain and is now at a place where minutes before helicopters were shot down, which should have provided security here long ago. The outpost has been overlooked, so far. Now that it is directly attacking our convoy, the Apaches are also aware of it. Nevertheless, the first owned vehicles are already destroyed. Once again, it becomes clear that no one has taken on the actual task of securing the road to the east. So it is no wonder that the next helicopter is lost, and a further tank group will destroy our approaching convoy within minutes. Ignoring the elephant in the room, the Apache engages not only distant targets but also targets off the road. At this point, they have no relevance to the course of the mission. Besides the smoke that marks our losses, there is one that draws the enemy tanks, and therefore, the direct danger. But George already has another target in its sights, far away and insignificant, but a safe hit. Let us remind ourselves once again. Here, helicopters with an active range of up to 8 kilometers are shot down by enemies whose range is just 4 kilometers or less. And while the third convoy is ready to replace the first one, the second convoy is taken apart and completely destroyed. Even now, most of our forces spend time restarting and making their way to the area of operations. This is getting farther and farther away. Our fob at the lake is almost unused. The time a helicopter is on the battlefield is calculated in minutes until he, and you have to say so, lets himself be shot down by far inferior opponents. The third convoy also falls victim to the still active tanks that have already destroyed the second one. The whole drama has been going on for over 10 minutes now, and we are losing one vehicle and one helicopter after another. There is still no reason to act from the cover. Not that there would not be. It is hovered directly above or beside or both and hope that the next rocket does not come in its own direction. And so it goes on and on and on. Needless to say, the fourth and last convoy doesn't get much further than its predecessors. The mission goal has been lost for a long time, and there is not the slightest chance to reach even the partial goal. Before we get to the analysis of the reasons, it should be said once again. This is constructive failure analysis, not criticism. The behavior is essentially that which could be expected because anything else requires a great deal of practice and, above all, discipline. However, it should also be said that in the past better results were achieved with 4 or 5 gazelles. As already mentioned, the gazelle is usually aware of its weaknesses and acts accordingly. Like the Mi-24, the Apache with George Actual in our DCS missions significantly reduces the strike capability, whereas exactly the opposite should be the case. The reasons: it was almost not working as a team. Assigned tasks were ignored when other goals were within reach. No priorities were set in relation to goals. The advantages of the own armament were not used to a large extent. The overview of the situation was missing most of the time. The communication with each other was poor. Finally, it remains to be noted. Yes, it was fun, but the group should have achieved at least the subtask without significant problems due to their strength and advantages. Thanks for watching and please subscribe to the channel.